Good afternoon. Welcome to the fourth instalment of the 5 parts of the Sustain Affinity webinar series. My name is Lee Timms from Clarity's Sustainability. So we're continuing the Sustain Affinity series all about green marketing and sustainability communications. Today we're talking about broadening the marketing message. So specifically we're delving into how we can take those principles of green marketing that we discussed on the last webinar and really broaden that message, getting it out through PR and social media as a medium, really starting to build trusted conversation and two-way dialogue, really using our collaborative marketing to spread the word and generate efficiencies in those marketing communications as well. So today we're lucky to have Liz Mail from Liz Mail Consulting, a sustainability PR expert. And then we've got Dave Evans, who is our head of digital at Clarity, talking about social media and some of our experiences around social media for sustainability. Then we've got Rupi Woodall from the International Aid and Development Forum, who's got a really good case study around collaborative marketing and working with partners to spread that message, make it engaging for the different segments. We'll then take questions and close in around an hour's time. So we'll kick off by hearing from Liz Mail. Thank you very much, Liz.
Hi, I'm Liz Mail. I'm a PR consultant with over 20 years experience now, specialising in construction, property and sustainability in the built environment. In this webinar, I want to use my experience in these particular sectors to illustrate some more generic advice really about how to use PR and communications to promote your sustainability credentials, and to do so in a responsible way that will minimise any risks of any accusations around greenwash. That means, any accusation that you might be exaggerating or somehow misleading people in your claims regarding the good work that you might be doing in social, economic, or most often actually environmental sustainability. So this webinar will talk you through some of the tools most readily available to most organisations within their PR toolkit, and at the end I'll give you my top tips for responsible PR and sustainability communications. Okay. But first let me set the scene, if I may. Because what happened within the UK's construction and property sectors has certainly been echoed in other industries too, and actually you might recognise this pattern. For me, one of the first signs that the whole sustainability agenda was creeping up into the business agenda was when I saw the introduction of various policies and political initiatives, often voluntary to start with, or often applying just to the public sector to begin with. But for example, I can remember some of those starting in the late 1980s, early 1990s in building and construction, with the first real interest in energy labelling of buildings, for example. So the early adopters, the companies who really first took to the green agenda, tended to do so primarily as sort of corporate responsibility initiatives. But fairly quickly their PR agencies picked up on this and started issuing press releases, things about the first zero carbon development or the first products to satisfy compliance with the Code for Sustainable Homes. I mean, there was a whole raft of stories that started appearing through PR channels. And in recent years, actually, more importantly, the procurement departments then started including requests for environmental profiles, energy labels, and other evidence of particularly environmental sustainability in their invitations to tender and their procurement documents. So, at this point, when it starts getting into the whole procurement world, that's when green becomes mainstream. And actually, green starts to become a competitive advantage. And so a market is born. Now, I was curious to see how quickly this news explosion had happened and if my memory served me right. So what I did, it's just a little bit of quick and fairly crude analysis, but I took one of the best known weeklies in the building industry, in my sector, the aptly titled Building magazine, and I searched its archive for 3 words: eco, carbon and green. And very simply, I went to see, how quickly such words appeared more than 100 times in a year. So green got there first in 1999. Carbon hit 100 times a year at least in 2004, and eco got there in 2008. And those words have consistently featured very highly ever since. And unsurprisingly, there are now a wide range of media I deal with on a regular basis which position themselves firmly in the whole environmental or broader sustainability market. They feed on all those stories, they feed on the news and the information coming through from organisations of all sorts. Now, some of those media are very new. In fact, I see new titles cropping up almost on a monthly basis. Others have been going a very long time, such as The Ecologist, and many are very reputable titles. And the journalists there are usually well informed, and they certainly know what sustainable should look like. So this brings me on to my next point about green claims and the care that we all need to take about the claims we make in all aspects of our marketing, our PR and communications. Now, for those of you who tuned into the previous webinar on effective green marketing, you will remember the points made by Lee Timms about DEFRA's green claims guidance. This guidance, I would say it's essential reading actually. This guidance was updated in early 2011 and was followed shortly afterwards in the September 2011 by new powers for the Advertising Standards Authority and the Committee of Advertising Practice, who created new powers to take action against marketing claims on websites and social media. So not just your traditional print ads, for example. And the guidelines say, in short, that all environmental claims must be absolutely crystal clear and understandable to consumers. And by that I mean actually understandable to my mum. It has to be very clear and generally understood what you're claiming. And all absolute claims of any sort must be backed by a very high level of substantiation. Now, I'm not going to go into the detail of this guidance. I'd urge you to go and have a look at it and to refer back to the previous webinar on this subject. But PR practitioners like myself, of course, might breathe a sigh of relief that technically we're immune from all of this. We're not regulated by the ASA, neither the CAP or various other international standards I referred to on green claims actually apply directly to corporate communications. We can argue that companies, their sustainability aspirations and initiatives are usually provided within a context that will ensure there is no potential confusion with advertising claims. PR is entirely different, we will say. And anyway, we have no time for any of this sort of qualified language because the media loves absolutes. Journalists want to know about the first, the biggest, the only. It's all about absolutes. So why should we temper this with any particular caution? However, I feel very strongly that we'd be absolutely daft not to take on the rules that are set out by the ASA or not to follow the guidance in DEFRA's code. And indeed, the Chartered Institute of Public Relations, my professional institute, published guidelines on communicating about sustainability back in 2009. And those are the guidelines that any reputable PR practitioner should be following. So, armed with all this knowledge and caution and wisdom, what can we actually do in PR terms? Well, fundamentally, I believe everything should start and must start with building relationships with the media. And by that, I don't mean every publication or media that has green in its title. I think it's very important to understand which selected media, be it broadcast, print, online, bloggers, others, who have the most influence and who have the most relevance to the stakeholder groups that you are trying to reach. You then need to talk to them and start to build a relationship and understand how journalists, really how they view sustainability. Understand what stories, what news, what views would really interest them. And maybe if there's not a lot that you can say right now about your own organisation and the work that you're doing, but if you have a strong opinion on what else is going on in your market, that is most definitely something to talk to the media about and start to use these ways to build relationships with those journalists. You should explore all options to create really interesting and useful content. Now, others we might call this thought leadership. I think that's a much overused and abused term actually, but we are talking here about some really informed opinion, some detailed analysis, some original research, surveys, polls, that sort of thing. Very useful to create valuable content for the media and indeed information and content that can go on your own website and for prompting discussions online and face-to-face. So we frequently use case studies, and that means being open about what has worked and what hasn't worked as well in your own journey to becoming a more sustainable organisation. And we write a lot of white papers, analysis pieces and other commentary. As I say, very useful and valuable content for use online and offline. And it's not just about the words. We are using a lot of video right now, again for use by the media. They all have online channels that they want to use. They will use our video so long as it's not logoed up to the eyebrows, you know. It can go onto YouTube, it can go onto clients' own websites. Video content can be used very successfully and spread through social media as well. And at least 2 of our clients currently have regular video blogs, in fact, and I can only see that that increasing. Similarly, photos and infographics, all sorts of visual media, basically any opportunities to catch attention, get across a message about what you have done so far to improve your sustainability, and then to create imagery that can be shared and will help draw people to your stories. For many of our clients, it's very important to be seen to be keeping good green company. So they want to be seen alongside their peer group and measured alongside their competitors. Now you should be able to find the top 50, top 100 type listings and benchmark yourself against others. And I believe this is a perfectly valid PR activity to take these sort of indexes to the boardroom, show how taking them seriously can improve corporate reputation. Now sadly the Sunday Times Green Index has been discontinued this year, but there will be others in your sector, so worth having a look to see where they are. For companies that may not be ready yet to celebrate their own achievements, sponsorships and other collaborations are particularly useful. For example, we've had clients regularly take part in Earth Day, or they have sponsored a sustainability category in industry awards. It's a way of aligning their brand with a sustainability message, and it's a useful beginnings in a journey towards communicating an interest in sustainability and then eventually their own achievements. And in your PR toolkit should be most definitely face-to-face communications. In fact, I think they're the most important of all. That's where I began actually talking about building relationships, and face-to-face is the best way of doing this. So for example, conference presentations, even local business networking groups, anything which gets you in front of people and allows you to have some dialogue, to talk about what you're doing, take part in your own and other people's events, hospitality, site visits. These are all very useful tools that we've used in the past. So number one, don't be put off. Yes, there are rules, there are guidelines around sustainability and environmental claims, but there is still plenty of room for creativity. I think it is the duty of us as clients and as consultants to understand the codes and the standards that are around this area, and I think PR agencies really must understand this too, and we have a duty to make sure that they do so. I think we need to clarify objectives. So I always say to my clients, what do you want to be famous for? Tell me what you want to be famous for, and let's clarify precisely what you need to achieve and understand your target audience, understand who you're trying to reach. So that means doing some work on targeting and segmentation. Do an audit. Check what you say and check what you do. Look at the words that you're using, pictures, logos, everything. Check whether it's communicating effectively with your target audience. And I believe in positioning sustainability as a journey. I talk about communicating that journey. I don't see green as it's not a destination you just get to and that's it. And the greatest respect, in my view, comes from those organisations who use PR tools to communicate the fact that they are on a journey and that they're continuing to learn all the time. Integration, the key word at the moment, and really absolutely vital. Integrate what you're saying externally with your internal communications. Your PR work must resonate with staff too, and there just cannot be a disconnect between what you say to the outside world and what staff see for themselves. And I think some of the most exciting PR and communication campaigns are currently all around engaging staff. Similarly, as you'll certainly hear in the next session, your PR should integrate seamlessly with search engine optimization and social media. I can't think of any work we do right now where this is not a fundamental business requirement. And in fact, I think it's the engagement that comes from that, because it creates this opportunity for dialogue. It actually all becomes part of your sustainability journey and part of your sustainability story. And finally, learn to love data, I say here. Evaluate. Keep measuring everything. Never before has PR and communications actually been so easy to evaluate, and I believe in bringing that back into the boardroom and talking about the true business value of properly done and responsible sustainability communications and PR.
Thanks for that, Liz. My name is Dave Evans. I'm Head of Digital for Clarity Sustainability, and I'm going to talk about digital communications in relation to sustainability. First of all, I want to take a look at some statistics around digital communications, just generally the digital media landscape. And first of all, to kind of show this statistic in how the public, your consumers, your audiences are less trusting of paid and owned media. So advertising, direct mail, those kind of things, audiences are far less trusting of. And what they're more trusting of is earned media, word of mouth essentially, and this is how the whole digital media landscape has kind of why it's picked up as much as it has, and terms like Web 2.0 are bandied around at the minute, and social media is kind of picking up too. I mean, Web 2, social media, exactly the same thing ultimately, but they're all based around people actually able to talk freely about brands, about products, about businesses, about things they like, and own a little bit of that media space. So they're more trusting of word of mouth over anything they see or see as paid media. Ultimately, Web 2, social media, is about meaningful conversations. That's what digital media now, digital communications is about. It's about people having meaningful conversations, whether they're amongst themselves, amongst their peers, or whether they are involving businesses or brands. It's this two-way communication, the idea that one-way communication, this old school method of marketing of blasting one-way communication has now changed, and it's about having conversation online. And ultimately, this is a great diagram showing the different number of platforms out there. Ultimately, that it's an absolute minefield of spaces, and people are doing numerous things across these spaces, whether it be publishing content, commenting, sharing, blogging, uploading content, playing games. There are hundreds and thousands of different places where people are engaging in these kind of activities online. But naturally, these are kind of the key spaces that consumers and audiences are actually engaging with. Naturally, Facebook, Google, Google and YouTube actually really are kind of like the biggest platforms ultimately. YouTube actually accounts for a massive number of searches nowadays, and it's owned by Google ultimately. Then you've got kind of Facebook, which is got a nice solid user base now, and pretty much the population of a country on Facebook. Twitter is gaining in popularity every day, and newcomers like Pinterest, which is an image sharing platform. It's basically a pinboard, virtual pinboard. All these things are up, and they're the dominant spaces. But it's all about how you use these platforms in relation to your other key digital spaces. So whether that be your blog, whether that be your website, and then how you use these spaces to market yourself. Ultimately, it's the channels, how you use these channels, and that's what we're going to take a look at during this presentation. So how do you build a social media strategy? Like as those last two slides show, there's a lot of platforms out there, and it's about finding the relevant ones to you, because ultimately every platform is set up to appeal to a different audience, to do something differently. So Twitter audience tends to be people over the age of 30, and whereas a Facebook demographic tends to be a little bit younger. So this is it. It's looking at what those platforms are, who's engaging on those, and whether it's relevant to your business. And naturally, all these platforms are set up to enable you to engage in a two-way dialogue, like we're kind of discussing in the first few slides of this presentation. This kind of one-way blasting of messages, that's over and done with now. The only way you will succeed in building a good solid social media strategy is to actually engage people in a two-way dialogue. So rather than just that kind of throwing messages out there, you've got to start finding things that you can actively talk to your audience, your consumers about. You won't get anywhere if you don't start following people ultimately, and you definitely won't get anywhere if you're not going to do anything with it. So don't set up these platforms and leave them to do nothing with them, because you will not engage anyone if you're not publishing content. You've got to publish content, and you've got to find, with things like Twitter, you need to start finding people to follow. You can use these things to research. Some of the biggest companies out there are not afraid to use social media as a research platform to improve their product. And I don't necessarily just mean in regards to things like crowdsourcing ideas, or just simply on these kind of platforms. You can use any digital point of presence that you may have to find out what your consumers want. Fantastic example is the Apple website, the Apple Store. Apple are not afraid to show on their website poor reviews for their products, because ultimately what they do is they take that information and they use it to make their products infinitely better in the next iteration of it. Measure and monitor. I mean, the controls are there for you to measure and monitor the conversation, to monitor actual hard statistics ultimately. That's the great thing about digital across the board, is it is incredibly measurable. So use all the things that are out there. Facebook comes with Facebook Insights, so you have statistics about engagement in relation to that platform, how people are engaging with you, what they're doing, how many likes and things like that you're getting, and then also use things like Google Analytics, which is free. So absolutely no reason why you shouldn't, and check on things like where your traffic is coming from, whether your links that you're posting to social media platforms are actually driving traffic to your website. You can set up campaigns and things like that as well, so you can actually create goals. You can say, have a campaign running on Facebook where you want a specific action, a specific activity that may occur on your website, so you're driving traffic from Facebook to your site, and you can actually set those up as goals within Google Analytics and check that. Collaborating and crowdsourcing. People are so vocal on these platforms, they will give you an opinion. Everyone's got an opinion. So this Guardian Social Media Sustainability report shows the top companies using social media for CSR purposes. So you can see that they're using social media scoring platforms to measure this and monitor this. But these are the leaders in regards to that space, to actually talking about sustainability in relation to social media. Naturally, these may not be the top companies using social media generally, but it gives you an idea of who's leading the way in regards to this space. And then the top platforms being used to communicate about sustainability, Twitter, as you can see from this graph, is really leading the way, possibly because it enables you to share content so very easily, kind of posting press releases, things like that, and also probably as well because it has quite a high, has a business-to-business focus over a business-to-consumer focus, which is more what Facebook and YouTube are kind of more business-to-consumer platforms ultimately. That's not to say that the other two channels that are shown here, predominantly Facebook and YouTube, aren't relevant for communicating sustainability. YouTube, fantastic channel to do so. Nowadays it's so very easy to put together a video clip and get it onto YouTube quickly and easily. I mean, you can actually do it through a mobile phone pretty much nowadays, and it just adds that little bit more interactivity and a little bit more kind of rich media case studies to the content you might be saying above and beyond Twitter. So it'd be nice to kind of see in a few years' time that YouTube number is rising. So we'll now take a look at some case study examples where companies have actually used digital to promote their sustainability efforts. And first up is this Pepsi campaign, where what they've been looking to do is support community projects. So they're actually taking their profits and using some of that profit to fund community projects. And what they're getting people to do is to vote on the projects they would like to see funded, but also getting people to actually submit their own suggestions for projects. So these people get some funding from Pepsi based on people's rating and reviewing of these projects that are submitted, and then through their kind of microsite they're showing these very visual statistics about the success of that and the positive change that the campaign has produced, and really getting people to interact on the website and really engage with them. So this idea earlier on that we were talking about, this two-way communication going on, and then that's all been supported by both on and offline media across a range of channels. Levi's Water Less campaign is about the water footprint that they have as a manufacturer and trying to reduce that impact, because naturally in the production of their product they're using a lot of water, and cutting that down using this water less technology that they've created. So what they've created is this campaign around that, which has been featured on their global homepage and across a number of platforms, including Facebook and various other social media channels as well. And off the back of this, they've actually managed to reduce their water consumption by an average of 28%, but up to 96% in some cases of some products. And it's about them this again, going back to this common theme of dialogue, it's about them engaging with their consumers to actually get this message across rather than doing it purely behind closed doors. And they're also then not only is it actually they're not only they're talking across social media platforms on this, they're actually putting it through to into the real world, into their offline marketing channels and products, where they're actually putting a tag onto the product to say that these products are using less water in their production. And then finally, Timberland have always for a long time been associated with positive social media usage and showing corporate social responsibility and sustainability through those channels. Their CSR reporting is very much integrated with their social media channels. They have channels dedicated to that issue, so they have channels that are purely about this, but they drive a lot of traffic off various social media channels and digital platforms to information about their CSR reporting and the things they are doing around sustainability and change. And it's all very interactive and all very immersive, so it may not always be on a, so you know, this is what I've probably not said yet, is that we're not just purely, we're talking a lot about social media channels here, but we're also talking about the wider digital channels like your own company websites and things like that, about getting this information onto there, making this information immersive and interactive and engaging people with this information. So some pointers in regards to getting started with this, and naturally, like I say, a lot of the focus of this presentation has been around social media channels and social networking, and a lot of people get very, very scared by social media because of all the horror stories that are out there on all the kind of brand channel websites and marketing portals that are out there. There's always some horror story about somebody putting their foot in it in some way, but there are a number of things you can do to stem that and prevent that from happening. Ultimately, the first one is be authentic. Sony got into trouble over this a number of years ago, not in relation to sustainability, but purely in relation to them faking reviews around a product, and they got caught out. This is the thing, people aren't fooled by those kind of things. People will sniff out and out marketing and out fakery. They will get it on these channels straight away, so always be authentic. If something doesn't work, if you can't actually get the conversation going, then maybe that channel isn't relevant, and maybe you need to go back to the drawing board, ditch it, try something else. Because ultimately, yes, your fan pages, you're saying here, they won't actually always just attract likes, you know, attract plenty of comment, and a lot of the time that comment can be negative. But like I said earlier on about those, like Apple, Timberland are also a good brand for, they're very good at taking criticism and using criticism as well. Don't censor it, don't delete it, try and face it, try and approach any kind of criticisms you might get, try and tackle them head on. If you start hitting a brick wall, then it's probably, you're probably fighting a losing. Respond promptly. People, they want to know that there's someone at the end of a channel. They want to know that there's a company behind there. That goes across every channel. That goes across, you know, this is the thing, blogs that are never content's never added to, or comments get added and people expect an answer. They expect that answer promptly. It's very immediate, the internet is. That's what people love about it. Same thing with, you know, going back to the email. You know, people expect an email answer in 5 minutes. On the internet, people expect someone to be at the end of that line and able to give an answer, and do so as promptly as you can. And keep content updated, like I was saying about kind of these blogs that never get updated, or platforms that never have content added. If you want to engage people, you need to keep content updated. Digital is becoming more and more regulated. There are guidelines around online advertising. Advertising online is now governed by Advertising Standards Authority regulations, so as much as any advert that you see in the press or you see on TV is regulated, online advertising is regulated too. This week the EU cookie law comes into effect, and this is around privacy on websites. I won't go into masses of detail about it because it's quite a large subject area, but if you Google that term, if you don't know anything about it, there's plenty of information online about the EU cookie law. One thing I will say is it's a little bit of a minefield, so if you're worried about any of it, any of the information you find, or don't understand it, then it's best to speak to your digital team, speak to your legal teams about that. Simple things to do, or at least a cookie audit, because basically what this law is saying is there are two types of cookie. There are some that are necessary to the working of a website. So for example, e-commerce sites have cookies that make e-commerce sites work. They are needed for the functionality of that site. They're okay. But then the things like Google Analytics and tracking cookies for like online advertising, they're a different story in the eyes of this law. So you need to perform a cookie audit. You may need to do things like assess your privacy policies and things like that, but there's loads of information out there. Consult with your IT guys, your web guys, consult with legal if you need to, but that might be something that you need to look into. And then contact details is a very, very basic level one, but important too, that you should have your registered company details on your website, at least one page of your website, and on any emails that go out. And then also it just makes good sense to put company level guidelines around social media into place. And this is a good idea because it means that everyone, to use such a horrible phrase, is singing from the same hymn sheet whenever they're on these platforms and with what they're saying, and also it should prevent problems arising with people misusing these platforms or not understanding what they should or shouldn't be saying, and prevent you from getting into any kind of mishaps or things that you might have to do with damage control or backtracking over. So it's always good to put your own guidelines in place regarding how you use digital spaces and what you say on them. So how do you go about engaging with bloggers? Engaging with green bloggers is exactly the same as engaging with bloggers in any field. You need to pick who is relevant to you, who your most relevant people to approach are. The relevance of what your product or service is in relation to what they are talking about through their blogs. So make sure those two things marry up, because otherwise instantly you'll be turned away from that blogger. Be personal and polite. You're not putting out a press release here to a blogger. Engage with bloggers on a human one-to-one level, in the same way that we're talking about that you should do that across digital and social media, full stop, that you engage with people in conversation. Engage with bloggers like you would have a conversation day to day. Let them know what you're doing. Let them know why you're approaching them, why you and don't start selling to them straight away. Start to build that relationship with them. The reason to engage with bloggers, ultimately, and I haven't said this, is there are bloggers out there who have a lot of influence in regards to social media and digital spheres, and they can be quite powerful in getting your product or service heard by a lot of people. So a lot of the time it's good to engage with these people. This idea about picking carefully is check out things in regards to you can see for yourself when you actually go onto a blog whether people are engaging with that blogger by the number of comments and number of posts and things like that. But also ask them when you've started to develop a relationship with them, ask them how many visits to their site they get and those kind of things. But as I say, only do that when you've started to actually talk to them on a bit more of a level. Don't instantly come out with these things. Bloggers are they are very ego driven in many ways. Sometimes they can be. So take baby steps to begin with and approach them as you would any other relationship, as any other business relationship, in terms of how you would network people. You don't instantly go in and start selling to them. That's the approach with bloggers. And then measure the results. Like I said earlier on, about you can measure the results of any digital space pretty much, which is what's great about it. So measure whether you are actually generating leads from these things, and if you're not, stop engaging with them and end the relationship and try something else. So how do you monitor your social media performance, how these channels are working for you. There's loads of statistics that you can be using from integrating, like I said earlier on, with Google Analytics into your main website and tracking where you're actually getting referrals from. But then there are these platform-specific statistics you can get hold of. So Facebook has them. Plenty of things like TweetDeck and Hootsuite, which are platforms that enable you to integrate with a number of different social media channels that you may have and broadcast content. They'll often have statistics attached to those too. Things like social mention and clout. These are ones where you can actually put in your usernames for a lot of these profiles. It'll run an algorithm and work out whether you are somebody who's very influential in these spaces and how well you're doing. Things like clout actually get to the level where in America people with high clout scores actually get free products and services sent to them by brands to try out. That's how clout now has a lot. Well, it has clout within social media statistics.
Thanks, Lee. My name's Rupi Woodall and I'm the Marketing Manager for the AIDA International Development Forum. Global aid spend is at $120 billion US, the only sector that has been unaffected by the global downturn. The largest donor country is the United States of America, with a 2013 forecasted spend of $33.5 billion. NGOs and private sector companies come together at AIDA to build partnerships for relief and development. The AIDA International Development Forum is a world-leading forum for the humanitarian aid, relief and development sectors. It facilitates partnerships and addresses global humanitarian and development issues and encourages the sharing of expertise. Now in its 12th year, the AIDA International Development Forum is returning to Washington, D.C. AIDF moved to Washington 4 years ago from Geneva, as we found that aid agencies and international development agencies in the US are far more open to private-public sector collaboration. And there needs to be such collaboration in order to deal with global humanitarian aid, emergencies and ongoing issues. The agenda this year has been put together with advice from our panel of expert advisors, all of whom are from specialist organisations who've been driving topical and relevant issues to aid and international development professionals. Our 2011 event was the most successful to date with over 1,400 visitors. The graph here demonstrates the wide range of backgrounds that we have tracked. Our other stakeholders include speakers, partners, exhibitors and sponsors. As you can imagine, the wide range of stakeholders presents unique marketing challenges in terms of ensuring that everybody achieves their objectives. Partners with NGOs, membership organisations and media outlets in order to effectively reach our target audience, raise awareness and reinforce our credibility within this sector. AIDF provides a fantastic platform for NGOs and manufacturers to come together and build partnerships. In 2011, we saw the UK-based NGO Shelterbox form a fantastic partnership with the solar light manufacturer Nakera International, which resulted in Nakera's largest ever order from a single source. Only a few months later, we saw Nakera's lights being distributed by Shelterbox in the earthquake-hit regions of Turkey. AIDF is marketed using the usual channels, but we do lean heavily towards collaborative marketing, not only for budgetary reasons, but also for credibility. The backing of membership organisations is absolutely priceless. Our partnerships also allow us to access a much wider audience with the additional benefit of a third-party endorsement from a trusted party. AIDF has a social media presence on Twitter, Facebook and LinkedIn. This allows us to have a conversation with all of our stakeholders and also allows our stakeholders to connect with each other and to discuss taking the aid agenda forward. We set up the hashtag AIDF2012 in order to be able to facilitate conversations specifically about the aid agenda and topics related to AIDF. Posts which contain the hashtag AIDF2012 are funneled through to our website. This helps us keep the content live and impactful. Most of all, it helps us keep it relevant. Although there are numerous challenges to ensuring that all these stakeholders meet their objectives, the graph demonstrates the high satisfaction level. By building cross-cutting partnerships, our stakeholders are able to take the aid agenda forward.
Thank you, Rupi. If you'd like to find out any more about any of the topics that we've covered today, then I've included website and Twitter details, and as ever you can follow the conversation at Sustain Affinity on Twitter. So we've only got one webinar left now, so this is the CSR people can engage with. So here we're covering how we can take those sustainability reporting messages particularly and take them away from being a long document into multimedia content that's most likely to provoke interesting two-way dialogue between various stakeholder groups. So we're covering this with our specialist at Clarity Sustainability. We've also got a speaker from the Cranfield Doughty Centre of Corporate Responsibility talking about the various standards, verifications and frameworks. And then we've got Peter Bragg from Eurostar, their Head of Energy and Environment, who's going to be talking to us about their CSR programme in its holistic nature and all the good things that come together to make that a success. We hope that you can join us for that. So that's next 4 o'clock next week. And now we're going to take the questions. Thank you very much for sending those in today. And I've distributed them out to the speakers and they'll take it away from there.
A really interesting question come in actually about dealing with journalists and how they approach sustainability stories. And I think I guess where this is coming from, and yes, it is true, journalists are naturally very questioning, some downright cynical in fact, and probably rightly so. They will scrutinise very carefully claims that we make and stories that we put forward to them. But in my experience, if you bother to build those relationships and work closely with them and to build up trust with, really the most important and relevant media, I think then you're able to explore with them how to bring what you are doing, bring it to life, and how to make it a story that would really interest, their viewers, listeners, readers, their online community. They will understand what their audience needs and what value they can get out of your news, your information, your case studies. So my experience is, just to talk to the journalists, build relationships with them, and to approach this in perhaps a more collaborative way. In my experience, that's always led to some some great stories actually, some really great coverage for our clients.
Okay, so we've just had a great question about the role of social media within international aid. I think social media has an incredible role to play and already has shown how it can be so amazingly impactful. I mean, the World Health Organization the World Health Organization monitor activity on social networks and they use it to preempt outbreaks of diseases. There's mapping technology available, which means that aid agencies can see exactly where aid has already been delivered, so they can provide a more efficient response. And two of the most important and quite interesting actually stories that have come out of Haiti back in 2010. One of the most powerful tweets, in fact the most powerful tweet of 2010, was about Haiti. A US broadcaster heard that a Médecins Sans Frontières plane couldn't land in Haiti. But the airport was being controlled by the US Air Force. So she sent a tweet using the US Air Force Twitter handle, and it was retweeted and retweeted and retweeted until eventually it was seen by the right person who ensured this plane landed, and these doctors were able to set up a field hospital and treat people who were in urgent need. As I say, there's another great story that's come out of Haiti. Team Rubicon, which are a great NGO who we're partnering with, and they're speaking at AIDA in June. They were actually formed as a direct result of the Haiti earthquake. One of the founders, an ex-Marine, Jake Wood, saw what was happening on TV, was shocked by the images, and he just thought, I can respond to this. I've got the right training from the army, and I can help. I can get on the ground, and I can really be of assistance here. And he used Facebook to reach out to his friends. He set up a PayPal account, and very, very quickly he and his other co-founder, William McNulty, were able to raise funds to get themselves and a small team of guys, all ex-Marines, on the ground in Haiti and at the heart of the action and helping exactly where was needed. And that's the foundations of what's actually quite a large NGO now that's less than 3 years old, founded on the parameters of social media and still going very strong, using their presence there.
So that's the end of today's webinar. We hope that you can join us next week again at 4 o'clock. If you've got any questions in the meantime, then please feel free to get in touch. Thank you. Have a good week. Bye-bye.